ball game is over. The Bruins of UCLA at home win their first game of the year. They carry Jerry Neuheisel.
Yeah, that happened. You're not dreaming. You're not hallucinating. You're not high. That happened. 0-4 at the time. UCLA beat number 7 at the time, Penn State, by the score of 42-37 on Saturday. This was one of the most shocking upsets, not only of the past 5 years, but of my entire lifetime. And I've been alive for 25 years. UCLA was a 24.5-point underdog going into this game. That's a massive point spread. To put it into perspective, Texas A&M was favored by 19.5 points at home against App State back in 2022. For that upset, that's how massive, that's how monumental this upset was for UCLA. And I said it going into this past weekend, it's always the quiet ones. It was this exact weekend last year where there was another monumental upset that felt like a pipe dream when Vanderbilt beat Alabama. It's always this weekend. It's always that first weekend in October when you're coming off of the massive weekend with blockbuster games where you look at it and you say, Penn State, UCLA. I can go to the pumpkin patch. I can go to Home Depot. I assure you, you can't, because chaos will ensue, and it did again. I'm going to talk about what this game means for both of these teams because there's a lot of themes that we can extract. But if you're new here, please subscribe to The Era with Brian Gregoire. We're building this Era community brick by brick, and I would love for you to be a part of it. So please subscribe. I really appreciate it. Let's talk about UCLA. This game was just a breath of fresh air for this program that has endured a lot this season. Already making a change at head coach. Making changes all across the organization. I mean, no job is safe within the walls of that facility. There's been a lot of turnover. There's been a lot of angst. There's been a lot of displeasure from the fan base, and deservedly so. But man, was this game a jewel, a bright spot, a silver lining in what's been a very depressing season for UCLA. Let's not forget, a few weeks ago, they lost in that very stadium, the Rose Bowl, to New Mexico, 35-10. Yeah, that happened the same year. That again proves how shocking this game was. But when I look at keys to this victory and what led to UCLA's win, I can muster up a couple things. Number one, they won time of possession. That is always a key to victory when it comes to these massive point spread upsets. You saw it with Vanderbilt and Alabama last year. Vanderbilt had the ball for more than 40 minutes in that game. If you want to tip the scales in a matchup like that, when you're outmatched, that's what you got to do. UCLA had the ball for 39 minutes on Saturday. Massive. They took control of this game. Number two, they had a set of balls. With play calling, they had no fear. They did not care about the physical matchup with them in Penn State. They knew that they were out there to win the game, and they're going to make aggressive play calls to ensure that happens. They didn't care. They had a set of balls, and they rolled the dice multiple times, especially with that onside kick in the first quarter. And sometimes when you're a massive underdog like that, you've got to do things like that to tilt the scales in your favor. And UCLA, they executed, they delivered. It was a perfect onside kick to get the ball back again. You just got to roll the dice if you want to pull the upset off. And then number three. And this is what's beautiful about football to me. UCLA, they just played the game. This was just backyard football, throwing the pigskin around, running around. These guys were out there genuinely having fun. Yeah, and like you could see that on their countenances. You could see that with their body language. UCLA was just having fun on Saturday. And that can't be understated. The point spread didn't matter. The previous 4 games didn't matter. The turmoil within the organization, the pressure from fans, the way the media talks about them, it just didn't matter. They had 60 minutes to shock the world, and damn it, they did it. And shout out to Jerry Neuheisel for galvanizing this team. I mean, this is a staff of interim coaches and interim assistants that UCLA has right now. It didn't matter. He galvanized this team, and they were ready to go. And let's talk about Nico Iamaleava. Like, what a fascinating storyline this is. You want to talk roller coaster? UCLA's had a roller coaster season this year to this point. Nico Iamaleava has had a roller coaster year. I mean, just a couple months ago, he was still in Knoxville playing for Tennessee. He played his last game for the Vols not even a year ago in December against Ohio State. And, of course, the whole drama goes down in April with sitting out of practice for the Vols. Josh Heupel tells him pretty much to get the hell out of here, and he transfers to UCLA. Fresh start. Has a terrible start to the season. Is really the laughingstock of college football for these first couple weeks. And then just has this resurrection of a game. Not against Northwestern. Not against Purdue. Against Penn State, who was a national championship contender for many going into this season. Passing, he did good. I mean, he was consistent, right? 17 for 24, 166 yards, 2 touchdowns. Running the ball, 3 rushing touchdowns, so 5 total for the day for Mr. Iamaleava, 128 rushing yards. He could do as he pleased running the ball against Penn State, and it was electric. It was really fun to watch for somebody just like UCLA, who's just been through a lot this year. I know a lot of people have their opinions on Nico Iamaleava, but on Saturday, it was his day. It was just 60 minutes for this Bruins team. Nothing else mattered but just football. And damn it, that is what I love about our sport. And moments like that for UCLA, where nobody believes in you, nobody picks you to win. You still pull it off. Now, UCLA sits at 1-4. Look at their schedule. Ideally, they're most likely not going to make a bowl game because they pretty much have to win out, and that's really not going to happen. It's not realistic. But it's a step in the right direction, and kind of tells you somewhat as an organization, we can win. You sometimes it's all about seeing the ball go through the hoop. We can do this. And so it's a boost of confidence. Don't know what it looks like the rest of the season, but for now, that's something that UCLA fans, people in the organization, can cherish and use for the future. Now it's time to get into the heavy part of this video. It's time to talk about Penn State. I didn't think we'd be having this conversation today. I really didn't, because you're Penn State, you're coming off of a loss at home to Oregon. You went to overtime. There are times where you didn't execute. You had an interception to lose the game. And you look at that, and you watch the sport a while. You see situations like that. You saw it happen with Georgia last week. I looked ahead on their schedule. I saw they were hosting Kentucky this past week, and I was like, oh, poor Kentucky. Getting Georgia off a loss. And Georgia took care of business, unlike Penn State, because they're a well-coached team. Penn State, I'd think the same thing. I saw UCLA next on their schedule, and I'm like, oh, man. UCLA. Poor UCLA. The worst team in Power 4. Going up against a pissed-off Penn State team that's very talented, has a great staff. Oh, brother. Pray for the Bruins. Well, none of that mattered. And that is truly a rarity in the sport. That's what makes this game in particular truly an outlier, because a talented team with a great staff coming off of a loss is usually a force to be reckoned with. Penn State for a lot of the afternoon was UCLA's punching bag. Yeah, they made it close, but UCLA was up by 20 points. I mean, this thing wasn't close for a while. And never in a million years did I think that would actually happen, but here we are having this conversation because it's truly shocking, and I really don't even know what the answer is. I don't know if Penn State knows what the answer is. I don't know how to diagnose it. I can say this. I think that this kind of goes back to what I said in my Clemson video a few weeks ago. This game is yet another example of how I'm going to be changing my process of evaluating teams in the preseason. And I will preface this. I didn't buy into the Penn State hype as much as a lot of other people that out there. As far as the Big Ten went in the offseason, I was big on Ohio State. I was big on Oregon. Was not as big on Penn State. And this is the reason why they in big spots they don't deliver. But this is a game that Penn State usually wins. Double-digit point spread, double-digit favorite. This is a game that Penn State usually wins. I'm usually concerned about them when they play Ohio State or Oregon or Michigan. Not this spot. This is a massive eye-opener for not only Penn State fans, but the national media and the college football landscape overall. Like, what the hell happened? I think that a lot of people in media, the AP poll, all very quick to put Penn State on this pedestal as a top 3 team, and a lot of us said it. What has Penn State done to earn this ranking? Like, who are they? They beat Florida International. They beat Nevada. Beat Villanova. Who are they? Like, this is number 3 is what a lot of people expect this team to be, but they haven't proven anything to be that yet. People are just going off of the assumption because they have players coming back. You have Drew Aller coming back. You have Katron Allen coming back. You have Nick Singleton coming back. That's awesome. That's great. What does it mean for this season? I mean, Drew Aller, I think, has a high ceiling, but there's a lot of quarterbacks out there like him that we think have high ceilings, but we don't really see it play out. You know, you see these glimmers of greatness, but you don't see it consistently. So just because it's a new calendar year, like, why is that going to change? And yeah, there were some moves done with Penn State's wide receiver room, but there's nothing that really popped off the page. And so I just don't understand why Penn State was put on this pedestal to begin the season to begin with, but now they're unranked, and deservedly so. And I still can't understand how they lost to UCLA. But I think that this team was hyped up way too much going into the season and was put on a pedestal way before they ever should have, just because they had players coming back. And I think that when it comes to assessing teams in the offseason, it's got to come down to this. What's the program's recent history? What's their culture? What's their recruiting process? What's their depth like? How good is this team? Like, the blue chip ratio really never lets you down. And you do have to base predictions off of historical standards, because we've seen what Penn State has done in big spots these past several years. You see what Ohio State does. You have to bake that in. And really, how good are you? Because you can be Ohio State or Alabama or Oregon and have a multitude of players go to the draft, but you have a whole pool of players below them who are just as good, who haven't gotten their shot yet and are now ready to go. And that grouping may be better than the group of guys that Penn State is bringing back. That's what we have to put into perspective when it comes to evaluating these teams in the offseason. That's my big takeaway. Yeah, Penn State has a lot of guys coming back. Ohio State's 2s from last year might be better. Alabama's 2s from last year might be better. Oregon's 2s from last year might be better, because those organizations have more depth when it comes to recruiting than Penn State, and that's a fact. They have more depth when it comes to recruiting than Clemson. That's why they are where they are. That's why Clemson and Penn State are where they are. That is the difference, and we've seen that trend unfold these past several years. That's been a huge component in the business of college football in the business of recruiting that has to be taken note of. All right, there's my rant there. But this was supposed to be a get-right game, in theory, for Penn State. But it was really a get-wrong game. And now when you would think after this game, you're Penn State, you're charting yourself back onto the right course again. But no, you now have more questions than answers. And speaking of questions, one of my questions is, what's the temperature in the room? What's the temperature in the town of State College right now? What's the temperature in the Penn State facility? Because I think it's getting pretty damn high. And I didn't think we'd be having this conversation right now. But we are. You lose to Oregon. Okay, that's one thing. That's ranked on ranked. You get a couple consecutive wins. You're back on track again. Whatever. You lose to a winless UCLA team. And mind you, an AP top 10 team has not lost to an 0-4 team since 1985 when UTEP beat BYU. That's the last time it happened. That happened to Penn State this past weekend. And so it leaves you the question, what's the temperature in the room when it comes to this James Franklin administration? Because I think it's getting pretty high. All would have been okay if it were just Oregon, but now that you add this one on, it's getting pretty intense. Because there were fire James Franklin chants during the Oregon game in State College, and I can't even imagine what it's going to be like when Penn State comes back home. It's going to be rough. This may be getting near like a Billy Napier level of walking on eggshells when it comes to Penn State and James Franklin's position, and I hate to see it happen for anybody. And James Franklin has a long leash because he was the guy that really rebuilt Penn State after all of the scandals in the early 2010s. He was one that got them back on track again, so he's got a long leash. But man, he's fielded some pretty talented teams here who have yet to make a national championship. And now, in a year where you're expected to have your best team ever, under his tutelage at least, and you're now sitting here with 2 losses in early October, and you still yet to play Ohio State. You still yet to play Indiana. It's very, very, very concerning. And I don't know what the aftermath may be if they lose both those games, if they go 9-3, 8-4, miss the playoffs. I don't know what the aftermath is going to be. And again, this can be a point where this team just gets closer than ever and balls out for the rest of the year. And if that's the case, then great for Penn State. I'm pulling for that. That would be an excellent story for college football. We'd be telling that for years. I'd be telling that to my kids. But right now, the outlook is not great. And the temperature in the room is going to be high up at Penn State. And there is going to be an elephant in the room to address. Amazing, monumental win, upset win for UCLA. Very puzzling, concerning loss for Penn State. Let me know what y'all think about this video in the comment section below. Thank you all for watching. Have a great day.